Today is July 23rd, 2024, and this is William Michael, the headmaster of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. Today I'd like to talk about a practical issue which may seem kind of strange. It's a strange topic for me to talk about, but I want to talk about it because it relates to Christian culture. And I think it's a phenomenon that many of us have become comfortable with that we really shouldn't be comfortable with. And so I'd like to challenge fellow Christians to think about this, to become conscious of it, and try to help me understand why Christians tend to do this. What I'm talking about is this habit that Christians have, and I suppose it's obviously not just a Christian thing, but a habit that many people have where they desire things for free. Now I'm not saying I don't understand why people can't afford the asking price for products that they buy. I'm not saying that we shouldn't discuss the price, let's say, of a car if we're buying a car or a house or something like that. But what I'm talking about is the disposition that many people have where they seek out things for free. Now, the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is different because it's a private business. So I can put a price on something and it just is what it is. There's no haggling or deals or compromising. There's really not even any special offers, because I've already made the work that I do far more affordable than any other programs can offer. So normally I don't have a problem with prices for things, for services or courses or enrollments in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. Our prices are already very low, and I consider that a goal of prudence, is to make things, especially things that are valuable and important, to make them affordable. But there's a spirit in modern society that, I can summarize this with a saying. My neighbor down here in rural North Carolina, my neighbor was once joking and said, "If it's free, it's for me. If it's free, it's for me," meaning that if he finds something available for free, he grabs it. If it's free, it's for me. And it's a very interesting mentality to me. And the reason why I'm concerned about it is because morally, if we study ethics, if you study, for example, Cicero's work on duties, we have an obligation to our neighbor. There's always to be an exchange of benefits. That's really what our relationships are. We exchange benefits. So if you do something nice for me, I'm obligated or obliged to return the favor. And we use that term obliged. Someone does a favor for someone, the person says thank you, the other person responds, much obliged. It's my duty to do this. So we've got this sense in moral people, there's this sense of mutual obligations. If you do a favor for me, I owe you a favor. If I do a favor for you, morally speaking, you owe me a favor, but Jesus teaches us to give and seek nothing in return. In other words, the right motivation for giving, the right motivation for offering someone else some benefit is simply for the love of God, ultimately. We do what we do, not even for the love of our neighbor, but we love our neighbor for the love of God. So ultimately, any good deed we do it for the Lord. And that's why if you pray the morning offering, you'll see that we offer all of our works. all of our good deeds, we offer them to God as not as if God needs anything, but as sacrifices of gratitude, of thanksgiving. We acknowledge that the things that we have, we didn't earn them by our own strength. We didn't come up with the business plan or the strategy. We didn't orchestrate our own circumstances in life. We have them by God's grace, and therefore, since we've freely received, we freely give. And that's supposed to be the disposition that we have. And yet, at the same time, even though that's the disposition that the giver should have, the receiver should also have a sense of an obligation to give back to the one from whom he has received. And in modern society, I think as time goes on, one of the things that the Apostle Paul, I believe, prophesied of the end times, he said that the love of men will grow cold. Men will become selfish. They'll become competitive, materialistic. They won't love one another. They won't treat one another respectfully, and so on. And it seems that this disposition is becoming more and more common. Obviously, this is at the center of all the political controversy in America, because there's basically two different dispositions. Think about what JFK said, his famous quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Just look at those two different dispositions. You've got one person who lives in America and is constantly asking, what can America do for me? And JFK encouraged the citizens to not ask a question like that, but rather ask, what can I do for America? That's the question that we should ask as citizens. What can I do for my country? What can I do for the church? What can I do for my neighbors? Not what can the government or the church or anyone else do for me. So there's two different dispositions. One is that of a person who goes into the world as if he's owed benefits from the world, and the other of a person who goes into the world feeling that he is obliged to give benefits to others. Two very different dispositions. And I think that this really helps us to understand the division in modern society. But as I always talk about political controversies, these controversies are not found outside of Christian culture in the world, as it were. These things are present within Christian culture. This attitude that I'm going to go into the world as a Christian and see what I can get for free. And this is especially true when Christians deal with other Christians. Christians act as if products and services provided by other Christians should be free for some reason. I once heard someone complaining about the Catholic bishops, the USCCB, because they charge money for the publication of Bibles. So if you want to buy a New American Bible that's published by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and you look and you see it costs $45 to buy a copy of the Bible, and people complain and say, how can they sell or try to make money off the Word of God? The Word of God should be free. And that's the argument in a Christian circle, that because something is Christian, it should be free. Because I need something from a Christian, that Christian should offer it to me for free. Because in our minds, we seem to have this idea that God gives everything out for free. Jesus did everything for free. The apostles did everything for free. The saints did everything for free. And therefore, if you want to be a good Christian, you should do things for me for free. And if we talk through that, we can see just what a wacky mentality that is. That you should do stuff for me for free. That I should get your product for free. That's somehow Christian culture. And you can see how backwards that whole mentality is. And we see this all through our society. We see sayings like the best things in life are free. And I would just like to ask fellow Christians to think about this, because it's got Christian culture all upside down, and it's causing Christian culture to die. It's causing Christian culture to die because we look at society as individual Christians. We look at the church, we look at Christian schools, we look at Christian organizations, even priests and bishops and monks and nuns. We look at these Christian people, Christian ministries, Christian organizations, Christian musicians, Christian artists, on and on and on. And we expect them to produce things for us for free. And for some reason, we ask for things for free. And we as Christians have imbibed this crazy modern welfare spirit from modern society. We do the things that unbelievers do without any self-examination, and it really doesn't make any sense. Now in the academy, in my work in education, we do get this occasionally. We'll get an email from someone asking for something for free. At times we'll offer access to our program or access to certain services for free. Recently, I've stopped all of that because I was having this discussion with myself, asking why we do these things. Why do we have this idea that if we offer things for free, something good will come of that? It doesn't make any sense. And I've since rejected that and no longer allow anything in the academy to be done or offered for free. And there's an important reason why. When we consider something to be valuable, let's say we consider the Christian faith to be valuable, we consider the theological virtues to be valuable, and I especially feel for the theological virtues. I think about this all the time, having had children and seeing just how much I take things like faith, hope, and charity in myself or in my wife, in other Christians, for granted. It really took parenting to help me to appreciate the theological virtues. And if you don't know what the theological virtues are, these three virtues, faith, hope, and charity, are gifts from God. They're not like natural virtues, prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. The theological virtues are infused into the soul by God. They're truly gifts. And I've taken these things for granted through the years, and I've learned over time to respect them and to be conscious of their presence in other people much more than I used to be. And so when I see someone who is ministering faithfully as a priest, like our parish priest, when I see someone doing some Christian work faithfully, and I can just feel that the work that they're doing is being inspired and empowered by the theological virtues, I recognize that this is something special and valuable. And I always try to make some contribution, because it should never be received for free. Because if we receive some benefit of any kind, we should in some way exchange a benefit for that benefit received. That's justice. That's to give everyone the honor that's due. And this is a moral principle that I think Christians need to become more sensitive of and more committed to. When you see something good, When you see someone doing something good, when someone does something good to you, don't let it be done for free. Offer some benefit in exchange. Because we have to learn not to take good deeds for granted, especially in modern society. We've got to learn to not take Christian services for granted, as if they're supposed to develop themselves and offer themselves to us at no cost. We should never think like that. If there's something good, we should support it. That doesn't mean you have to write a check for $1,000. You can send a donation of $1, of $5, $2. But it makes no sense. It makes no sense why the contribution should be $0. Why would it be $0? Why would it be zero? Why would it be free? Why would it be demanded for free? $0. That's what I don't understand. So this concept of free things, if it's free, it's for me. The best things in life are free. This is obviously false. This is an immoral disposition. And I'd like to challenge Christians to not let it be true in our lives, that we receive benefits and give nothing in return. If we receive benefits, we should make some exchange for the benefits we receive. It's an act of gratitude. It's an act of recognition that we've received this, and therefore we feel obliged to return this. But what's really strange is this desire for things to be free. Not to desire things to be cheaper or discounted or made more affordable, but to be free. So for example, let's say in the academy we offer enrollment, and again, our prices are already very low, very affordable. We offer student enrollment for $25 per month. It's ridiculous, but by God's grace, we're able to make our program available at such a price. $25 a month, and we'll occasionally get a message from someone saying, let's say, especially someone who lives in another country, because we have a growing international student body. We'll get a message from someone in another country saying $25 for us is actually a lot of money. And I'd like to know if we could have not a discount, but the question will be, can we study for free? Can we have free tuition? And I've become sensitive to this because it makes no sense why someone would ask for it to be free. Free means $0. $0. Why would it need to be $0? That's what's strange. Think about your relationship with your children. Let's say your children go to college. They go off on their own as adults. They're starting to establish their own independent adult lives, and you say, well, I can't buy my kids a car. I can't pay my kids college tuition. But what's strange is that we'll often see that when parents say they can't afford to pay tuition or they can't afford to buy their kids a car, we won't find that they pay for part of the car, or they pay for part of the tuition, or they contribute $50 towards tuition. We'll find they contribute $0 towards tuition. I experienced this myself. When I was in college, my parents were going through a difficult time financially. They had no way to help me. They couldn't pay my tuition. They couldn't buy me a car or anything like that. And I knew that, and I never worried about it. I got to work myself, studied, worked part-time jobs, paid my way through college, really, really didn't care, didn't expect my parents to help. And I knew that they were having difficulties financially, so I never ever asked them for anything. But now, being a father myself and dealing with all my own kids and seeing them go to college and things like that, what's really strange to me is that when my parents acknowledged that they couldn't pay my tuition, the alternative to paying my tuition was to give me $0. Zero. Not a tank of gas, not a few bucks to get a sandwich, not some money to buy some books. We can't help with tuition, so our contribution will be $0. That's the phenomenon that I'd like to ask Christians to think about. Why do we do that? Why is that so common? Why do we turn to such an extreme when we find something to be unaffordable? I can't afford to pay your tuition, so my contribution will be $0. I can't afford to pay for this enrollment plan, therefore I'd like to know if I can have it for free. I don't have money for food, so I would like to know if I can have this food for free. Why do we do that? It's not normal. It's not historically normal. It's not morally normal. It's a mindset that's being learned in modern society to think that we should be able to go about and have things that we desire for $0, for 0 benefits exchanged. Now, when I was a kid, we used to joke around about things like this. We would say if you went to the restaurant or went to the diner and you couldn't pay your bill, the owner of the diner might make you go and wash dishes, or you could offer to do something to pay your tab. There was a sense of obligation. But that's really gone away. I was a paper boy when I was 12, 13 years old. I used to deliver papers to all my neighbors in central New Jersey, ride my bike around the suburban developments. And it was very clear that if a customer asked you to do a favor for them, like, can you put the paper inside my front door? Can you put the paper under the carport next to the house? Can you put it whatever? If something was asked, there would be some reward. There'd be an extra $1 when they paid their bill or something like that. There was an expectation of a fair exchange. But that spirit is disappearing in modern society. Now, I would love to say it's disappearing in the world, but what's really strange is that Christians think in the same way. And what I'd like to encourage Christians to take seriously is the importance of contributing something. Contributing something. Because what's really interesting about modern society is that unlike life when I was growing up in the 1980s and 1990s, things were very local because there was no internet. Things like wireless phones, cell phones, things like that were just developing when I was a high school, college student. There was no internet. There was no Amazon.com, none of this stuff. Everything was more or less local. Local church, local school, local businesses, local services, and so on. It was very personal. And so to do something like to start a school required lots of local cash. It was very difficult to do things because the money and the resources and the skills, they had to be generated locally. And so we needed to find sponsors who could donate $100, $500, $2,000, and so on to sponsor our baseball league, or to sponsor something at church, or to help us do something as kids. We're always fundraising and selling things for school and doing all different kinds of projects to raise funds locally because local life is very expensive. But in modern society today, much of the services that we use, many of the products that we receive, many of the benefits we receive from organizations and things, they come from much larger organizations. Maybe they have websites, maybe they're international, at least national. And there are thousands and thousands, if not millions, of people involved in these programs. And what we've got to learn to understand is that it makes no sense to desire things for free, but because the pool of people involved in different institutions and organizations today, because of the internet, because of this globalized life that we live, there's often lots of people. And if those people would just contribute a little bit, it would actually be a significant amount of money. You know, we see websites like Wikipedia making appeals like this. Like, their website is used by 60 zillion people, and the people who use their website contribute $0. And Wikipedia is like, come on, if you would just give $1, if our users would just donate $1 a year, we'd have millions of dollars of financial support to make the site better. But people will use Wikipedia as an example and contribute $0. The same is true for other websites. It's true for something like archive.org, where they've got tons of books available for free in PDF format, and people use archive.org. They find all kinds of helpful books and resources on the website. And though they're receiving this valuable benefit from this organization, they contribute $0. And that really makes no sense. You can see the mindset of the modern person saying, how can I get for myself as much as possible and return nothing? It's a really distorted mindset, and yet it's common among Christians. So what I'd like to challenge Christians to do is learn to give. Learn to give something. You don't have to be the biggest donor, obviously. You don't have to donate $500 every time you do something. But you should do something. You should contribute something to anyone from whom you receive a benefit. If you receive a benefit from someone, especially from another Christian, you should make some kind of contribution to that person's work or organization or business as a token of gratitude and support for the work that they do, for the benefits that they offer. And the contribution that's made should correspond to the value of that benefit. Because this attitude that because someone makes something available and doesn't charge for every single thing they do means that you can just take it for free, that's really not true. That person is doing what Christ tells us to do. He says, give and seek nothing in return. That's good. And most Christians who work feel impelled by the love of Christ to do good for others, and they're ashamed to ask anything in return. Like, how can I, if some student sends me a message and asks for help, and here I am, a Christian, dependent on Christ's love for my salvation, how can I say, no, I'm not going to help you unless you first pay me this or that amount of money? Christians just can't think like that because we've received so much and we're conscious of what we've received. And so Christians give freely. Christians share freely in the work that they do. But other Christians receive the benefits of the work that they share and act as if they should just take it for free because the person doesn't charge anything. because the organization doesn't make them pay. They can just grab it and say, hey, look, this is free. Why don't you go get one? Look, over there, they're available for free. You can just take as many as you want. Just go get. That's not a Christian mindset. That's not a Christian mindset. And so, yeah, there are times where we're short on resources, and we need to rely on the generosity of others. That's how Christian society, that's how human society works. But we can always contribute something. And even if we can't, theoretically, even if we can't contribute anything presently, we can contribute something later and not just forget about the benefit that was received. Now, I'm not just harping on this, and like I said before, in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we don't need anything. I'm not complaining that we don't get support. I'm really making an appeal for Christian culture in general. I'm not asking for anyone to do anything for the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. This is a cultural issue. This is an issue that affects all Christian culture. It affects all Christian works. It affects the church. It affects things like church music and church art. It affects Christian education. It affects the publishing of books, the carrying out of the works of mercy by all different organizations. It has to do with religious vocations, the works of religious orders, and so on. We've got to learn to share benefits that we have received and contribute something in exchange for those benefits. It's just a moral duty. Now, what really made me think about this one day was watching some old films where it would be like old British culture, for example. And if you watch an old film that's supposed to be trying to really capture accurate historical details in every aspect of the film, you'll see the relationships between servants and the homeowners. You'll see these different social relationships between people. And if you pay attention, you'll see subtle little things. You'll see, for example, that if a servant carries in a set of bags for a guest, even though that's the servant's duty, that's what the servant is there for, the guest will reach into his pocket and pull out a coin and hand it to the servant. If a boy does a favor for someone, you'll see that person reach into a purse or reach into a pocket and pull out a coin, pull out something to give to the boy for that service. And you can see that in that older culture, that sense of obligation was ingrained into the way the Christian people thought. Even if it was a servant, even if it was a child, if they do a favor, I owe them some token of gratitude, an exchange for the benefit received. And that spirit of sharing in benefits inspires people to be more generous in their sharing of benefits. And it creates this friendly disposition in society. But as I said, many people today have an attitude that I'm going to go out into town, or I'm going to go into even my own family and look for free things, take free things, and offer nothing, zero, in exchange. And that really is a moral evil that we've got to become conscious of and learn not to tolerate in ourselves. Now again, we have to constantly remind ourselves, Jesus taught us to give and seek nothing in return. But that command is given to the giver. That command is not given to the receiver. Jesus didn't say to the receiver, people should give you stuff and you don't owe anybody anything. That's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, give and seek nothing in return. And even when he says that, the message is that you will be rewarded by God, and that should be what motivates your giving. However, to the Christian who receives the benefit, there is an obligation of some kind. Now, the benefit that's received, there can be many different forms of benefits given back. We can give back money. That's the most obvious. That's what most people talk about because we live in a cash-based society. We don't live in medieval Europe where there's barter cultures and we just exchange locally produced goods. That's not how our society works. We live in a cash-based society where everything is obtained with cash. And that's why it's reasonable for people to ask for cash or to share and exchange cash for benefits received. It's a cash-based society. But if we don't have cash, we still have other benefits that we can offer. For example, sharing information about an organization is a very valuable benefit that you can offer to someone that you receive good service from. Sharing a link, sharing a good review, and so on. That's a very valuable benefit that you can offer in exchange for some good that you've received, to actually make an effort. Make an effort to give a good review, to post a good review, to share information positively about an organization that you've received some benefit from. That's a very significant contribution, especially in modern society where so much is done online. Very, very convenient as well, but very valuable. Just sharing information about someone's ministry, someone's organization, someone's business, someone's service, someone's product, and so on. Making the effort consciously and intentionally to do that for the benefit of that other person. Very simple. Socrates, in fact, who was poor, said in the dialogues of Plato that the currency with which he exchanges benefits with men is praise. And so Socrates would offer praise for a good man who had done him some benefit, and his praise was his payment, was his exchange, his reward. But at least there is something that can be done to acknowledge the benefit received, to acknowledge the value of the benefit received, and to give something back in exchange. It could be assistance with our own services. It could be assistance with something else that we do at another time, and so on. But there should be a sense of obligation to give a benefit in exchange for a benefit received. Many Christian organizations and ministries are just starving. They're dying and being exhausted because they do good and they don't get $1 in return. They don't get $1. An offering basket can be passed around in a church, and granted, you might not put $50 in the basket. You might not write a check for $500 to put in the basket. But why would the option be zero? Zero, not even dollars, 0 cents, zero. That's the concept that I'd really like to ask you to think about. Why would it ever be zero? Why would it ever be zero? That's what's really strange. That's what's strange. If you're going to a church, you know that they've got a collection plate or a poor box, an offering basket or some, you know there's going to be some sort of request for financial assistance. Have something prepared, but don't allow it to be nothing. Don't allow it to be nothing. That really makes no sense. If you can't afford something that you really need, and you've got to first ask whether you can't afford it because you're already blowing your money on other things. But if there's something, if you're really down and out financially and you can't afford something and you can't afford to pay the price, it really makes no sense why you would ask for it for free. That really makes no sense. You can offer something. You can offer to make a partial payment, and if your fortunes turn around in the future, you can make the rest of the payment. You don't have to just pretend like, hey, it was free, or hey, I got it at a discount, so that's it. You see that mentality of just taking and taking and taking. This is one of the things that's causing Christian culture to disappear. There's just no financial, and again, not even financial, there's no support of any kind for many, many of the benefits and services received. Many things received, many benefits. Going to confession, having a priest take time to be available for confession, receiving absolution through confession, and then offering nothing in exchange. It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't mean that you should pay for confession. Doesn't mean the priest should demand payment for confession. But if benefits are received, some contribution should be made. Some contribution of some kind should be made in exchange for the benefit received. And this is throughout life. Now, what this teaches us, if you say, well, I can't afford to, well, then you see what happens is it teaches us to be more careful in receiving things, to be more respectful, to be more careful, and not to just go into the world like a vacuum cleaner, just sucking up everything that's not nailed down or hidden behind a paywall. Consider the benefits received and show a sign of gratitude, show a sign of recognition by exchanging a benefit, at least in some degree, in some way, rather than just completely ignoring everything. That's what I'd like to challenge Christians to think about. Just think about your life, think about benefits you receive, think about the people and organizations that you receive benefits from. It might not even be conscious anymore because we're just so accustomed to doing this, but think about it, become more sensitive to it, and learn to exchange. Learn to exchange something. Just because it's being a good neighbor. It's supporting the people in our society who are actually doing good. Encouraging them to do more good. Enabling them to do more good. But even more importantly, simply acting with gratitude, with a self-awareness that acknowledges that we've received some benefit and that contributes to the common good, that gives back to society. So think about that famous line from JFK, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, and just apply that to every different circle of society that you're in. Think of, don't ask what the church can do for you, but what you can do for the church. Don't ask what the school can do for you, but what you can do for the school. Don't ask what your child can do for you, but what you can do for your child or for your spouse, and so on. Think about that phrase, and let's learn to become more conscious of the benefits we receive, because, and I want to close with this, the reason why I think this is so important, the reason why is because when it comes to secular things like your cell phone, or your internet service, or your cable television, or your car, or whatever. When it comes to secular things, there's no compromise. There's no compromise. The mobile phone bill comes and it needs to be paid in full, or they just turn your phone off. The electric bill needs to be paid, or they're shutting your power off. You don't make car payments, they're coming and taking the car back. In secular affairs in life, we're very dutiful when it comes to making payments, because we know that if we don't make payments, it'll be taken from us, because there's just, there's no personal relationship there. It's just purely financial, that relationship. And when good people in our lives, good organizations, charitable organizations, and so on, they don't treat us like that. They don't treat us like that. And what we do is we take advantage of their charity. We take advantage of their kindness. We take and take and take from them, and then we treat them as if they have no need of anything, that we have no obligation to them. And meanwhile, all of our money, all of our support is exhausted on these merciless secular businesses and services and products that really we may not even need. And yet those things are perfectly funded and supported to the profits of billions of dollars, and the organizations providing very significant spiritual services, intellectual services, cultural services, and so on, get nothing. Why? Because those who do those works are generous and they ask for nothing in return, and we simply take advantage of their kindness. So let's learn to be a people that don't do that, but that actually are conscious anytime we receive a benefit to generously share and exchange benefits, whether we're at a restaurant tipping a waitress, receiving or having something done as a chore by our children, receiving some favor from a neighbor, whatever it is. Let's be conscious to give something in exchange as a means of saying thank you, and be conscious of this need to exchange benefits with those from whom we receive goods. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. It's an important cultural concept that I think we need to focus on. Again, we're not talking about being the top donor. We're not talking about making contributions that are beyond our means. We're not talking hundreds or thousands of dollars, although for some that's perfectly reasonable. But it's a principle. It's a principle that there's something, that there's an exchange of something to some degree. And think about what Jesus said about the widow. She gave all that she had to live on to the temple, and Jesus commends her as faithful. So you just see this spirit of generosity where one recognizes himself to be a member of a group, a member of a community. And he is not just one who is constantly withdrawing, but he's also one who's contributing. That's the concern for the common good that should move us, an important moral concept that I see Christians losing hold of and following unbelievers in the practice of unjust habits that really have to be acknowledged and resisted. So let's think about that and try to improve ourselves in this. Make sure we support people who do us good. Make sure we support organizations that do us good. And encourage those people, encourage those organizations to do more good, because they will. If they're enabled, they're willing to work for nothing. If they have support, they've already proven themselves faithful and generous. If they have support, they're the kind of people that will do even more. And so they're objects fit for charity and fit for financial support. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. I wanted to challenge Christians on this because it's a phenomenon that I really don't understand, and I see it more and more, and it's something that we need to stop. So I hope that's helpful. God bless.